Hey guys, I'm Sean from Cycle World.
I'm Morgan from Cruiser.
I'm Jeff from Hot Bike, and we just spent the last 2 days riding the all-new Softail platform. It was pretty amazing.
And now we're out here at Lucky Wheels Garage to talk about the bike a little bit and discuss Harley's new strategy.
Yeah. So I guess my first question for you guys, the reason why I was excited to talk to you guys after we rode these bikes was the Dyna's dead. The Dyna's gone. And for me, as a newer fan of V-twins, but someone who's kind of based on performance all the time. That's, for me, we test so many ranges of bikes. Like the news for me, I was pretty excited, but I don't have kind of the history with the platform you guys do, the knowledge of customization. So what are your guys' thoughts on like Harley's move towards, everything in the Softail range?
I took the news of the Dyna being gone pretty hard. I personally own 5 Dynas myself. I've led the charge with Hot Bike as, a performance magazine, and kind of the cornerstone of that was the Dyna. And to see them kill off that model is, it's a lot of people are taking it hard, and I can see why.
Sure.
I think change is good. The Dyna is a 26-year-old model at this point. And aside from Harley, you don't really see a lot of OEMs keeping their models around that long without changes. Sure. So when you see that it's upgrades and not just killing it for something new, I think that the new platform fills the hole.
Okay, but now after 2 days on the bikes, did they mess up? Or is this a move in the right direction? Did they really jump the shark here? Is this smart?
I think sometimes, you have to alienate a few people to get a lot more people motivated to purchase new bikes.
Sure.
Right. Like the way Harley said it, it's not bad to break the internet. Everyone lost it for a bit, but
it's still losing it.
It's still losing it, right? But we've ridden them. You look at the platform, and it's upgrades, and it's not for nothing. It's not just to break the internet.
Right, and also, like I keep telling people, they've made Dynas for 20 some odd years. If you want a Dyna, there's plenty available. If you want one of these new bikes, you can buy that too. That's kind of the way I feel.
Sure, outside of maybe like the Lowrider S that was around for a year or two, but even that, those are still, you might pay a little more for them, sure. But the bikes are there, the bikes are available. Right. Cool.
Plenty of aftermarket.
Okay, so we just put, 300 miles of mountain twisties. We rode 8 of these bikes. We rode 107s, 114s. We rode every model that there is. 4 bikes in one day on one, 4 on the other. I think for me, overall, looking at the whole platform, not any bike specifically, but the whole platform, the biggest question I had and that people pointed out was the brakes, right? Some of the bikes that had twin disc brakes were now singles. The only bike with twin disc brakes is now the Fat Bob. Yep. Yes, they've shed some weight. As you pointed out, some of that's in gas with the smaller tanks. But for me, I was happy to see that the bike stopped well. The brake feel on, when we were kind of hustling was really good. I did some brake drills where I just tried to really hammer on, and I was really impressed with, for most of the models, how well they stopped down. What do you guys think about?
A lot of the models got brake upgrades and floating rotors, but there were a few of the lower end models like the Lowrider and the Street Bob that don't have the floating rotor in the rear, and I felt we lost almost all rear brake on those bikes.
Yeah, I agree entirely. Yeah. Even though the calipers look the same, they're not the same. Yeah. And that was pretty cool. Once you look at the back of it, you're like, oh wait, that's a totally different caliper front and rear.
Sure. Yeah, so I was surprised that, going from a bike that had such awesome braking power to hopping on another one that just really gave me nothing in the rear.
Sure. What about the platform? Its overall platform surprised you guys?
The heritage surprised me incredibly. And having the floorboards across the cruiser line. I've never ridden cruisers with floorboards that don't just scrape changing lanes. So
sure.
You have good lean angle.
There's a lot of bikes with floorboards that really was surprising. Yeah. What jumped out at you?
Really was the external adjuster on a lot of the bikes. The preload actually worked. Like you could feel it on 1, 3, and 5 or whatever it was along the way. And the more you played with it, it was really cool to play with it, do a section, twisties, back it off, or make it harder. I really liked it.
Yeah, there were some bikes where like the Fat Boss especially just beat up my back on the freeway, and that thing is meant for someone. I'm probably smaller than most of Harley's demographic.
Oh, definitely.
But being able to back some of that off really it really helped with that bike.
Was there anything that really surprised you about the platform?
I mean, like I said, just the brakes was the big thing. Being able to actually, I mean, for me, my complaint about V-twins in general, coming from a guy that rides such a variety of things, is I feel like I can't stop. I feel like I can't go fast because I can't stop. And this was where the feel in a turn, no matter what position or what situation I was in, the brake was really impressive to me, how well those things stop. Okay, so I don't really want to get into every model because I know that we're all going to write reviews, and we're gonna do that later elsewhere. But let's talk about some of our favorite bikes and our least favorite bikes.
I think my favorite bike was the Lowrider for sure. It still kind of retained a little Dyna DNA. I don't want to go too far with that, but it had some feelings to it. And as far as me looking at bikes, my job is to rip them apart as soon as I get my mitts on them. It's not like you guys. So I could see that thing with some T-bars on it. I could see that thing with a fairing on it, and a nice 2-into-1.
That's funny because that was one of the bikes I didn't like, but I've ridden yours that you've built before,
right,
and I like those. And I didn't like the 16-17 model. This model I like better, but not as much. Mm-hmm. But then I've ridden yours and I've loved them. So it's interesting that our different backgrounds give us a different feeling because you can kind of, you can feel right the first time all the things you do to it.
Yeah, and I think the one I didn't really care for was, believe it or not, the Fat Boy. It just, the frame, it's a wide frame with the big ass rear tire, and then the front one's pretty fat too. Just, I think where we rode them, and all those twisties and up and down the mountains and Big Bear and everything, that it just wasn't the bike for that. I think that it could be great somewhere flat like Houston or Daytona Beach or something like that. I think it's perfect for that. And it's more of I hate to say it's a posing bike, but it's that kind of Harley for that kind of rider.
I had a hard time figuring out who that bike was. My chiropractor has one and has done 2,000 miles in 6 years.
Right.
But I had a hard time, just the styling isn't for me. I had to say, you or one of the other guys passed me on it, and I was like, oh, it looks good in motion from the side, but the bike made my low list.
I think a lot of people are going to have to get used to the looks. I personally dig the styling of the wheels and a couple other things, but just as far as riding where we did, it just didn't really work for me.
And the breakout was the same way. You have the longer rake on that bike, and you have the 240 rear, so when we're up in the mountains hitting the twisties, this isn't a bike that's super nimble and wants to drop around. So while the rake and the tires make more sense if you're, doing highway miles, sure. What we were doing, it didn't make too much sense. Yeah.
I have to say the breakout is my least favorite. And it's funny because it should be worse than it is. When you put drag bars and those mirrors that hit your hands and a 21-inch front wheel and that fat rear tire, it's a testament to their engineering that bike can perform as good as it does, given all it has working against it. That bike is just so not for me. It's just, it's for the guy that loves Orange County choppers and wants the vertical headlight. It's so much of the wrong kind of attitude. And it was okay to it was good for what it was to ride.
Right.
It was surprisingly rideable.
But man, that thing was hard to love.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. My favorite of the lineup, which really surprised me, was the Heritage. I have never been a fan of Softail Heritage bikes. And, looking at the press release, I was really into the Street Bob, and then we show up and the Heritage just blew me away. Riding it, like I said about the floorboards, you have lean angle and that new engine. It comes with the 114 as an option, so that bike as an all-arounder is just really an incredible machine.
I really think the styling of that bike is really cool, the all-black one with, the black studs on the seat and on the saddlebags and all that stuff. The murdered out look is super cool on that.
Even the green one looked cool with the black accents. Yeah, that one actually surprised me a lot. That was actually the one I got the least time on, and I wish I'd gotten more. I liked it a lot. My favorite's the Street Bob. Yeah. I have to say, I went in with the Fat Bob, kind of think that would be my favorite. And this one we just gave our 17 back we had for a while. This one, it feels so much lighter. We did that one section pretty quick. And it's crazy how good this thing rides. I think people came back from the first ride saying, "Oh, the Fat Bob will crush a Lowrider S." I think this thing will crush a Lowrider S. And this thing, the thing is this thing puts me in more of like the cruiser mentality. The Fat Bob is actually a surprise that I didn't like it because it's almost like trying to be more of a naked bike.
I had the
Go
same
buy
reaction.
a KTM Super Duke. Like it doesn't feel. I don't feel like I'm cruising. But this thing, I feel like I'm cruising.
Being
and
me,
I'm shredding.
Right, but being me, who's ridden these all the time, like when I got on the Fat Bob, it felt like what you guys are talking about. And I'm not gonna go out and buy a KTM or you know, a Japanese motorcycle. I'm a Harley guy. So I mean, I think it's kind of cool. I do like the updated futuristic looks. You know, everybody keeps kind of Terminator, but
No.
I mean, I think it's cool.
I agree, and I think for the guy that wants that kind of ride but just loves the Harley as the brand, loves the style, like it's such a good way to get people into the brand, and I get that mix. For me, who like I really want to love Harley, and I hope that it could be more of that for me. It didn't cut it. Where I'm like, if I'm gonna do this thing because I already love this other thing, I want the heritage. I want this. I want a cruiser. So it's neat how they've really like. I mean, I guess that means they did their job.
I think so.
Even though it means that was one that we had planned on getting to do a lot more with. I'm like,
Right.
I kind of don't need to do more with it. So it's.
But we should also note that both of your favorite bikes were the two only models with mids. And if the Fat Bob had mids on it, it would be a completely different machine.
Mids and like a tracker bar. So here's the thing that I wanted to tell you. I was reading some of our old stuff, and you wrote an article about ways that you thought Harley sort of messed up with the 48.
Right.
That for me is the Fat Bob. It's like when they launched it, when they launched the photos of it, I went, oh my God, this thing speaks to me. And then you get on it and you realize they made a few concessions for the sake of styling. The huge front tire, a couple things where you're like, you got so close.
Right. And
Like-
you can ask them. I said, why did you put forwards on this? They said, because we had to with the exhaust.
Right.
And the exhaust was a styling piece. So they chose form over function.
And the huge front tire to look zombie apocalypse.
Exactly.
If that were a narrower
Right.
tire and the thing would tip in better, it would be so much more fun. If those bars, you know, if they weren't the drag bars, and again, that's an easier fix than some of the other things. But that's one where you get on it and you're expecting it to feel like this sporty bike, and as someone who's ridden those, you're like, man, there's like these 4 or 5 things. Same with the 48. Like the 48, you're like, they finally made a Harley for the me's of the world. And you go on and you're like, oh, but man, they just like,
Almost.
yeah.
Yeah, it's just this feeling of, you know.
And you're like, if they just tried a little less hard to nail like the styling aspect, the bike would be
And
so
I
much
think
better.
this was their like, yeah, we're killing the Dyna, but look, performance guys.
Right.
And they were, they were shooting for it, and I don't think they hit it with the Fat Bob.
That said, I think they're gonna sell a whole bunch of them.
Oh, I agree.
I do too.
I think people are gonna love them.
Yeah, and I don't think we're going to see a lot of them that look like they do now.
Oh yeah,
for
the
very long.
aftermarket's going to get so heavy on
Yeah.
these bikes. It's not even funny.
Right.
Well, and that's the cool thing, I guess, about the whole platform is that the stuff is interchangeable. I'm talking to a buddy today who's asked me about this bike, and he's a big dude, and I'm like, you could put a 5-gallon tank. You could do things to make it feel like a more substantial motorcycle. A lot of us said that this feels like a Sportster, and for the guys that don't want that, you can add things that maybe aren't a bunch, that are functional, but that make it feel bigger, or you can mix and match different pieces across the line, which is.
I mean, like even what we were just saying, if you look at the mids, they're mounted to the forward position. If you were to put a different pipe on, you could just use takeoffs.
Right.
Sweet. So yeah, the Fat Bob was definitely my biggest surprises. For you guys, what were your guys' biggest surprises over the 2 days?
Yeah, like I said, I was just so surprised that I really liked a Heritage. That was strange. It was alien to me.
I loved it, but I didn't know I wasn't supposed to. So
Yeah.
whatever.
I mean, for me, it was the deluxe. I mean, with the new frame, you took a bike, and anybody that's ridden a Softail for more than 200 miles knew, the prior ones were horrible with the pull shock. Like, they looked really cool. You can get them low, you can get them just scraping the ground. It's super rad, but the new frame under that deluxe cladding is super bomb.
Yeah, it was funny. Again, that's a bike I had never ridden or given much thought to before, but riding it, I could think of all these people that I know that love V-twins, and I was like, man, like my chiropractor, I was like, they're like people who are like, man, they would love this bike. Man, like this bike rides so good. Like it's not for me by any means, but it rides rad.
Like, has all those classic looks and cues that Harley has.
But with newer touches too. So you've got the Tombstone taillight, which is a throwback and just this awesome little feature. And then you have those like slim blinkers.
Yeah,
which are-
that's the only bike that has all LED lighting.
Yep.
Yeah, that bike is beautiful.
Yep.
All right, well, there you have it. It's been 2 super long days of riding in 110-degree heat. I can smell these guys almost as much as I can smell myself. We all need showers really bad. Check out our websites, cycleworld.com, marcelcruiser.com, hotbike.com. We have articles on each model specifically, essays on the death of the Dyna, essays on how the Dyna was hated and the FXR was hated when it first came out. We have pieces on riding the bikes back-to-back with the 17s and 18s. We have pieces on just the tech overview, the shift from Harley. And by the time this drops, we will have full reviews by the 3 of us on our websites on our impressions from the past 2 days. Check those out. Thanks for watching, and see ya.